A warm welcome to Manjula ma'am. And at the outset, I must say that she's been very gracious to address our students at a time which is like very early in the morning in her country. And thank you so much. You have disturbed your sleep as well for us. The introduction that is there is very brief, but she's much, much beyond that introduction. We've met her in the school, and that is why we thought that we should invite her. Mrs. Manjula Talreja lives in San Francisco, California, the heart of technology innovation in Silicon Valley. She's a senior executive board member with over 30 years of experience in successfully transforming, building, and scaling publicly traded companies across multiple industries. She has been at the forefront of launching the largest and most influential platform in the world, Cisco Systems and Salesforce. Manjula ji has gained a reputation across the world as a thought leader and a sought after speaker. Currently, she is serving on the board of directors of three leading cybersecurity companies. Manjula ji has been recognized as one of the most influential women in the Bay Area 2023 by San Francisco Business Times 2023 Top 25 Directors to Watch, Top Women Influencers in Cloud, and Top 25 Women in Customer Experience. In addition to her working in the technology industry, she continues to give back to society with philanthropy and social work to children's education. She is a board member of City Year, a non-profit focused on underserved schools and providing young people a chance at a better future across 26 states in the United States of America. And as I said, these embellishments do not describe her completely. You have to hear her. It is not like a conventional career counseling session, children. So please listen to it very, very carefully. You know, these kind of talks will definitely change mindsets, and request your parents to sit with you. Over to you, Manjula ma'am.
Thank you so much, Praminaji, and it's a true pleasure to be with all of you. So you're asking, so what is my connection to you and your school? Anjali Japuria, the chairperson of your school, has been my friend for the last 50 years, older than your parents too. We went to college together, and even though we live halfway across the world, we have been best friends since then. When I visit India, I stay at her house. When she comes to the USA, she stays in mine. And there is more. As Pramanandji said, I had the good fortune to visit your school in March this year and spend a whole day. I was truly touched with the depth of spirituality and the immense talent that all of you have. Anjali asked me to share my career journey as you launch yours, coming out of high school, in high school, what subjects you should take, what degrees you should take as you launch your career. And as you make these decisions on what role you're going to play in the working world, she wanted me to share how my career journey went. So, should we get started?
Yes.
Okay. Before we get started, I hope you have a pencil, pen, paper, or even a laptop or your phone. And I'd like you to write down 5 key points. I call this the basically the legs of the stool you're sitting on for the rest of your life in reference to your career. Number 1, passion. You must love what you're doing, whether it's at school or in the future. And you have to figure out the cross section of your passion, your interest, making money, and listening to the advice of your parents and teachers on what they recommend your career plan should be. So that's complex. You want to take care of all of that because this is a decision of a lifetime. But don't feel the pressure that much. Because, we are all living till 80, 90 years old. And life expectancy is so long. How can you make a decision when you're a teenager for the rest of your life? So, having a mindset that you can alter your career through your journey is okay. Number three, create the love of education. Do you know that I just had my 67th birthday? And I continue to learn. As a board of directors member, I recently attended a course on boards at Stanford University and actually stayed in the dorms. So think about what can you do in order to drive the love of education. Not doing rattang and saying, okay, I'll pass this exam. The love of education. And if there are any parents here, please help your children find mentors and sponsors. And I'll talk a little bit about what the importance of this and all these points is. And the last but not the least, please write this down. Students, think about working smart, just not working hard. And I'll talk more about what is the meaning of working smart. So let's start with my journey. My earliest memory is when I was 10 years old. I, as a woman, young girl in India in the late 1960s, when your grandparents were young, I was exposed to my mother's cousin's friends. And I'll tell you this story. My father was a very famous medical doctor. My mother was a botanist. And I took science in high school. But before that, when I was 10 years old, my mother's cousin, who used to live in Mumbai, who was a medical doctor, got married at our home in New Delhi. And she had four friends who came to the wedding. One was Indian, three were Japanese. And they had just come and climbed the third highest mountain in the world, Mount Kanchenjunga, the first woman ever to do that. Can you imagine how I felt? This is when my eyes opened, my heart opened, my mind opened, and I realized sky's the limit. So as you're growing up, you must imbibe to understand what are other people doing. Just because AI is the latest thing, it doesn't have to be what you become. It is about getting exposed to people who have achieved a lot, both spiritually, mentally, in their careers. And parents, I really encourage you to introduce them, all these children, to your connections so that they can have a cup of tea just by themselves and ask questions of people that are successful. Because these are the mentors. This is how the mind becomes so big. That's when I decided as a young girl, I will have an amazing career. Fast forward, I was in high school. I loved biology. I loved dissection. I loved math. I loved organic chemistry. And I had planned to become a doctor because my dad was a doctor. But when I finished high school, I did soul searching and I wanted into business. So I said, what's the best business foundation I can have? And I went to LSR, one of the top schools of India, for economics honors. Fast forward, 1979, I came to the United States. We were at the junction of the starting of the IT industry. But I didn't want to do computer science. I wanted to bring both those together. My love for business, the foundations in micro and macroeconomics, and technology. And I went to college in the United States with a business degree, but a major in IT. I want you to think about this. You have so many more options than I did. You have the opportunity to create your own majors. Why not do a minor in one and a major in one? And that's what I talk about, working smart. You just don't go into one field and work smart about maybe you can have two majors in college. And that's about getting yourself ready for the future. When I finished my college in the United States, I was one of the top students in my class. And just by coincidence, my teacher's husband was the head of HR, human resources, at Hewlett Packard at that time, a very famous company. And he helped me interview with the right people. And my first job was in IT in Hewlett Packard. Here is when I realized that the men were getting promoted faster than women. And I said, I got to go to a younger company that doesn't have that legacy. And my husband said to me, there is this small company called Cisco. Everybody in Silicon Valley is talking about it. Why don't you go interview with them? See, this is about looking at different opportunities. And I went and joined Cisco when it was only 500 million. I was employee number 600 in IT. I worked hard. I worked smart as well. And about 7 years, 8 years later, I had made more money than I had dreamed. And you know what it taught me? I didn't set my goals high enough. You got to set wide goals, and it's okay to be disappointed. And that's when I realized the second point that I'd brought to you, altering your career. I said, I don't want to be a CIO. I was getting promotions every year. I don't want to run the IT department of the company. I want to become a general manager. I want to become the head of sales, the head of marketing, the head of services, the head of engineering. So, how will I do that? So, I did two things. All through my career, I have learned how to make mentors, going to mentors for advice. How can I get better? How can I learn about other businesses? And so, even though I was in IT, I started presenting to customers about what we are doing in IT. And as we had created the first e commerce site in the world. And I did soul searching on where's my passion. Remember, I said the first point, my passion? And I realized I don't want to be in the back end building IT systems. I want to be with customers. I want to run go to market teams. And in addition to my job, I started to present to customers. Remember, I said the and versus the or? You work smart. You start working smart. You have mentors who are guiding you, and you're starting to do things in addition to what you are doing. I know in your school, you do that already. You know how to do that. You study, but you learn beautiful dances. I saw fabulous dances, beautiful music, so many dimensions. And I would say what I did when I was working in the early days at Cisco, I was understanding what are the customer needs? What am I doing in IT? How are they running their business? And that's when I got the opportunity of my mentor, who was an executive in the company, saying, Manjula, if you really want to become a general manager, you have to leave IT, go into strategy consulting, go work in engineering, go work in sales. But you're not going to get a promotion every single year because those are new areas of learning. Remember, I said the fourth point, which is love for education. Love for education is not just doing studies through books. Love of education is about, I think there's some screen that is coming on that versus seeing the students. Can you take away the screen and just show us the students? Thank you. It's so the love of education. I love looking at all of your eyes and talking to you. And I'm loving how you are looking at me. So, love of education is not just reading books. Love of education is experience, going and talking to mentors. How do you do your job? How can I get better? And that's how I grew. I grew by learning and what I said, the and versus or. Working smart versus just working hard. There's an and an and and an add, not an or. And so at Cisco, I found mentors and then I found sponsors. Sponsors mean a mentor who really trusts you and finds you your next job. So I left IT. I went to um, strategy consulting. I went to engineering. I went to sales. I went to services. And I became a general manager and an executive at Cisco. I worked there for 22 years. As Cisco became bigger and bigger, and it became $50 billion, it became too big for me. I did some soul searching. It's going back to passion. My passion was I want to work in companies that are growing really fast because that's where I can provide my expertise. I left Cisco after 22 years and went to Salesforce. And do you know how I got my job at Salesforce? It's all about the network and mentors and sponsors again. One of my good friends was a woman. We had created a women's network. And the president at Salesforce was a woman, Maria Martinez. And I just went to have a cup of coffee with her. And she says, "Oh my goodness, you have built such a great portfolio. We'd like to hire you here as a senior vice president." I learned so much at Salesforce because it was at the tip of the software as a service company. From networking, I went to software as a service. It's because of the love of education. I was learning new things while I was working. I was training courses. I was selected in the in the company for doing some courses. And you can do that by becoming visible. After having worked 5 years at Salesforce, which I absolutely loved and I learned so much, I started doing soul searching again, saying, what do I want to do next? What do I want to do over the next 5 to 6 years? And that's when I decided I want to be in the board of directors of companies and help companies strategy and grow them to the next level. What became clear to me is that Salesforce's strategy doesn't allow the executives to be on boards, and many companies do. So a smaller company, CEO, and I had a conversation. I said, I'll come and build your organization. I'll grow you from 100 million to 500 million. But keep in mind, my goal is to go on boards. And I'd like your help, Jen Tejada, the CEO, to help me get on boards. 3 years later, in 2023, just 2 years ago, I left PagerDuty and became full-time or I wouldn't say I work full-time anymore. I moved to boards. What I'm trying to say is back to 5 things. My passion for what do I want to do next? I've altered my career. I've chalked out my career. So if you want to do computer science right now or liberal arts, you're not stuck with it. There's so many opportunities that the world is moving so fast. There's so much to do. But what is fundamental is you have to create the love of education. You got to learn all the way through. Parents, I really encourage you for them to have mentors and sponsors. Open their world. There's a very famous book from an author at Stanford University called Mindset. And what it talks about is an open mindset, to have an open mindset. I'd love for your parents to buy that book because it not only teaches you how you create an open mindset for your children, but your open mindset too. Because world is open to whatever you want to do. You want to become an astronaut and go to be the first person that goes to Mars? or you want to become a fantastic artist. But again, going back to the point, you can't just do because you love the passion. Remember, I said there was a vector? It has to be a monetary gain as well. And the elders have some guidance, and you have to blend all that together. And last but not the least, think about working smart. Sometimes you work so hard that you forget what the world around you. You want to constantly have a space around you where you learn new things all the time, just like you are right now. You're learning how to dance, you're learning how to sing, you're learning so many aspects, spirituality, who am I? Up in addition to learning your liberal arts, your social sciences, your English, your Hindi, your Sanskrit. Remember, this is all an and, not an or. So as you go on this journey, think about my journey. And I plan to work part time. I'm working only 60-70% of my time. You know what I'm doing the rest of my time? I have 4 grandkids and I spend with them. But I'm also traveling the world. Every 3 months, I'm somewhere in the world. I just came back from Norway fjords and south of France. I went to Antarctica in December. I went to Bhutan and your school in March. If you lay your foundation well now on these 5 principles, you can do the same when you're my age. You can see the world in a different way. But you must have an open mindset to take this journey. I didn't want to talk too much. You're most welcome to talk to me about my career and what your challenges are, because I wanted to for you to have enough time to ask me whatever questions you have. We can open it up for questions and we can talk more about my background as I get the questions and I'll elaborate more on it.
Parents and children both, you can put the questions in the chat box, and if there are any teachers who wish to put the questions in the chat box, they may do so.
I want to talk about challenges. You know, we all have challenges. In my generation, women didn't go into tech, into the leadership roles that I did. Yes, there were a few women in IITs. There were very few women in BITS Pilani, very few women. And as we went into management, as they say, we broke glass. And especially in the United States, still today, I sit in boardrooms where they're all white men and I'm the only woman. And guess what? I'm 5'1". They're all 6'5". But you know, when you have very strong brain power and you have established yourself as an expert, you are sought out by everybody. And you want to create a goal. Colleges sought you out, jobs sought you out. And then in the future, even boards will look out for you.
Ma'am, I would like you to talk about study abroad concept. You were in India and being, a woman. How were you able to decide that aspect? Would you like to share with our parents and children?
I know two different sets of women about studying abroad. In my case, I actually got married in 1979 to a good friend, my husband. He had already come to study abroad. He had finished his undergrad at BITS Pilani and was doing his master's in computer engineering. So I came abroad with him. Now, I could have just taken a job. I could have not worked. But I grew up with a fundamental belief that my parents said to me, which I have given to my 2 daughters. All women must have careers, and all women need to be as financially independent as possible. Now, in order to accomplish that, when you come to the United States, just having an Indian degree is not good enough because my goals were high. So I decided to go to college in the United States, and I took it very seriously. Now, there's another set of women who are my friends. One of my closest friend, Anandi Krishnamurthy, she went to BITS Pilani, did computer engineering there, and then she got a job with IBM, and she got a project in IBM in the United States. She came here and she realized, oh my gosh, I must do a master's here. There are others who just decided, saying it's important that I get a US degree in order to rise to the top. So you don't have to just do it right after you have finished your undergrad degree. My younger brother, who's a very famous person now in Wall Street, he finished his commerce in Sri Ram College in Delhi. He went to work in trading for a few years and gained experience in Japan, then came to New York to do his master's, MBA, and then came to work in the United States. My older brother came straight after his undergrad to the United States and then did his MBA at Stanford. My point I'm making to you is you just don't have to apply right out of high school to go to the United States. You know, every home has its own financial challenges. American colleges are very expensive. So you can do your bachelor's degree in India, work for a few years, then come to study to the United States. You can do your undergrad, then do your master's. There's so many options on what you do about studying abroad. But what helps in studying abroad is you get a world perspective. You have other students from other parts of the world. You get jobs because you've created a platform for yourself.
Thank you so much for this answer. Uh, Here, Devansh Yadav, he writes, Ma'am, is it possible for all to grab so many opportunities? And if yes, how do we do that? You've partly said that in your talk, but maybe he wants to know a little more.
You can't imagine your opportunities today because you don't know what the opportunity is. You know, when you were in fifth grade or when you were in fourth grade, since you're all ninth to 12th grade now, none of us knew that artificial intelligence will become so big and there'll be so many opportunities. You know, in San Francisco right now, they're driverless cars. All the taxis are driverless. I didn't imagine that 10 years ago, but they are. So, what I'm saying to you is lay your foundation. Lay your foundation in terms of your passion. It's okay to alter your career. You start in one field, you move to another field because new fields. So, don't worry about the opportunities today. Create 2 to 3 year plans and new opportunities. And that's why I say have an open mindset so that you can start looking at different opportunities. They will appear. When I did a business degree with an IT minor, I didn't know that I will go into strategy consulting and become a general manager. I was just going to IT and I thought I'd become a chief information officer. I didn't realize e-commerce will become so big. I was one of the few people in the United States, we were about 10 of us, that built the first e-commerce site. Do you think I knew that when I went to college? No. But because I had created an environment and a platform for myself, I worked hard, I showed the passion, I had an open mindset, that opportunity came to me. So don't think about opportunity today. Build your platform, build all the 5 things I'm talking about, and new opportunities will come in front of you.
If you have an open mindset, for that too, courage is required and you broke conventions. But for that, you need to have a skill set as well, perhaps. So here I have Sid saying, what motivated you to perform so well in academics and also in your professional life? Then, along with that, there's another one. How did you strike a balance between your professional and personal life?
I love that question. So let me answer the first question. I come from a family where both my parents had careers. My mother had already broken glass with her in laws and built a career as a botanist, and she became a biology teacher in her generation. I had in the back of my mind that I must have a career. And I'll tell you a secret. When I was 20 years old and I got married, my father was really worried. He says, "Oh my goodness, I've been telling my daughter to have a career. She's 20 years old. She's getting married. I wonder if she'll have a career." And he and I had a conversation about that. And I said, "Don't worry, Dad, I will." And you know what I did? I found a partner in life who supported me. I still remember when we were in high school and I was just leaving high school. And my husband, who was my brother's friend, asked me, "So, what are your career plans?" There were not too many boys at that age who asked women those questions. And I realized he was somebody who is very positive about women's careers. So I always grew up in a family where it was important that I build a career. That motivated me deep in my soul. Number two, how did I balance home and work? It's complicated. But there is a balance. When you grow up and you find a partner in life, this is an important conversation you must have with your spouse to be, which is two careers are important, and how will we manage it? So here's what my husband and I did. When we had our children, when I was in my early 20s, I stayed home for 6 years. I went to work after my older one was 6 years old and my younger one was 4 years old. My career took off so fast that my husband in high school decided to slow down so that I could take over. So all through our careers, one has slowed down, one has grown, one has slowed down, one has grown, all through our careers. I'll tell you another story. 7 years ago, my daughter, who's a medical doctor, who's a famous surgeon here, had a baby. Her nanny did not work out, and her husband's in computer science and he's in a biotech company. And one evening, they fired their nanny because she was not doing a good job. And my daughter called her father, my husband, and said, "Dad, remember when you said I'll be there for you? We just fired our nanny. Can you come and help us with our baby?" He flew down there to Los Angeles from San Francisco that evening. And for 6 months, he would fly down every Sunday, he would come back every Friday, and he was their full-time nanny. You know, both men and women should not have egos that this is not my job, this is my job. It's so important for all of you to have equal roles with women in your life so that you can truly have a balance, both men and women. At that time, I was working at Salesforce. I had no capacity to do it. But my husband was a venture capitalist and he slowed down. He says, "I won't do my ventures for a few years. Those ventures that I've invested in are fine. I won't." And you have to create that overall balance on how you create a life together about work and home. It's not easy.
Thank you so much, Manjula ma'am. So, children, you have to understand that as you are growing in these formative years itself, you have to reason out with yourself and tell, just as I need support, people around me also need support, and everybody's career has to be supported. This is also a skill which you have to learn as you grow. Now, this is like there's a question, what kind of profile do top colleges like Harvard, MIT, or Stanford look for in these fields? And how can I combine my interest in science with social impact to stand out for my college application?
I just want to say one thing. There is an obsession in the world that the only colleges in America are Stanford, Harvard, MIT. That's not true. United States has some of the best colleges in the world, and there are hundreds of them. It is super important that you build the love of education versus an obsession on which college you go to. I didn't go to a Stanford, I didn't go to a Harvard. I went to Santa Clara University in Silicon Valley, and I reached the top. There were people who went to Stanford who worked for me. It is down the street from my house. I live near Stanford. So I just want to let you know that please don't be obsessed on what Stanford looks like. You can look up their you can look up their website and decide how they and look at previous students. If that's what your passion is, please do it. But I can't give you that advice. I'm in the Stanford Women on Boards at Stanford, but I didn't do my undergrad in Stanford because they respect me for what I have achieved. So, what I'm saying to you is it's okay not to go to those three colleges in terms of what you want to achieve. And I'm not the best person to say what is the profile you're going to have because I never went to any of those then. Of course, now I am because of my experience and I'm well known in the industry. Pramaniji, what was the second part of the question?
How can I combine my interest in science with social impact to stand out?
I love that question. So you notice my profile. I am on the board of companies that are cybersecurity, making a lot of money. But what is my passion? Remember the word passion? What I saw when I was growing up in India is those people who were very poor and went for education became middle class and more than middle class. So my passion is, and that's why I'm on the board of City here in the United States, which is a nonprofit impacting underserved schools. So my recommendation to you is, what is your passion? Do you want to help students who are underserved? Do you want to help other underserved people? May not be in education, maybe in different other ways, maybe in terms of teaching them some skills that they don't have at home. Maybe it is tutoring them. Whatever may be your passion, you can find that niche and start driving it. And automatically, don't do community service because that's how you get into Stanford. Do it because you have the passion. Because I'm telling you, when Stanford interviews you, they will see you through you because it was a checkmark exercise versus the true passion. Colleges always look for what is your passion. And if it comes from your heart, they see it. So find opportunities on how do you want to change the world? Not because your auntie said, "Arey beta, do it over here." You do it in terms of what is it from an education point of view that, or from an impact point of view, where you've seen you can help out.
So there are two questions which are probably they can be answered together. Aradhya Agarwal asks what to choose between our heart passion and our mind profession. And there is a parent, Dr. Nusrat Alvi. She asks how to decipher or decode the passion versus potential versus job market demand. What you said at the outset.
It is very complicated. And I think about it where I talk about my story. And my story is either you did business or you did computer science. And everybody, my husband, everybody around me was either an engineer, a doctor, but I didn't become a doctor or an engineer. I looked at what are the various options in colleges. and I realized I can do business with an IT major. I would say look at those kind of options. Don't just look at it at a superficial level. Start looking at different colleges that give those options. Is there a way to do a minor and a major? There a way to do a double major? That's when new opportunities will get created instead of saying you must become a doctor. My dad was a doctor. None of us became doctors. He was a doctor at Ames, which is a very famous hospital. He became Director General of Health Services, but none of us did because our passion wasn't in it. So you've got to figure out what are the kind of options that are being created by the universities. You can't just go in liberal arts when the opportunity is in AI. But you don't have to be a computer science person to do artificial intelligence. You can be an analyst, which are all skills that you can learn through liberal arts too. I hope I answered that question. It's complicated.
Karthik Agrawal, he's
Mhm.
asking that could you please elaborate on how you did the soul searching? And
Mm.
the second part is how were you able to become confident in deciding which career to pursue?
You do soul searching by having some experience. When I came to the United States, I had a business degree. And I didn't know whether I wanted to do coding completely and do a brand new degree. And I took up a temporary job. And you folks have more options than I do of doing internships. You can do an internship for 2 or 3 months and explore. Explore saying, let me go do some job and see if I like it or not. And I went to a bank and I did some coding. And that's when I realized I don't want to be sitting in front of a computer all the time. I want to be in front of customers. I want to be in front of people. And how can I marry the two? And all through my career, remember I said there's an and? I would do my job, but I would go figure out other jobs too. So I would go and see, oh, I am working in IT, but my mentor is in strategy consulting. Let me see what they're doing. And I'll tell them, give me a project that helps you in soul searching on what you want and what you don't want. Because you actually play around in different areas. And that's why it's so important to have mentors and sponsors. This is the other trick I want you to know. And I teach that say that to every single person I personally mentor. Write it on a piece of paper. When you're thinking, and it's not in print, either write it on a piece of paper. I know you're really good at typing. Type it on your laptop. Type it on your phone. When you start writing things, it becomes more crystallized. And when I did my soul searching and I said, what are the pros and cons? I had one column that said, this is what I like about it. This is what I don't like about it. And I'll tell you, that soul searching was so critical for me in the year 2000. I was getting a job as a chief information officer of a company called Expedia. Expedia is a company which is very famous now. But I didn't want to be a CIO. I wanted to become a general manager. I didn't take that job. I took a horizontal job and didn't get promotion for 4 or 5 years because I wanted to grow that degree, grow my general management skills. So, what did I do? I wrote down on a piece of paper the pros of me becoming a CIO are these. The pros of me becoming a general manager over time are these. These are the cons. That's when you write it down, you understand the risk as well. Saying, what's the worst case that can happen? And as you do soul searching, you have to be very clear and very comfortable with the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario could be I don't get a promotion for 2 years. You got to get comfortable with that because you have the bigger goal in mind. So, soul searching is so important every 2, 3 years of your life. When you finish high school and you start college, please do soul searching. Is this the right place? I'm doing engineering, but I want to do something in liberal arts too. Can I go talk to the professors and say, can I do two majors? Can I do these options? But write it down. Look at the best case scenario, look at the worst case scenario. Write down pros and cons. Don't just be, and that's what I talk about working smart. This is a really good example about working smart versus working hard. There was a second part to this question, Shobit. What was that?
Yeah. That how were you able to become confident in deciding which
Mm,
career to pursue?
very, very, and that was what I was very touched by that question. One has to, I loved what Anjali Japuria says on identify who am I? Who am I spiritually? Who am I overall? The way I became confident about who am I is again soul searching and self confidence because I was ready for the worst case scenario. I used to be in rooms where I was very thoughtful about what I was saying, but I was not confident what I was saying was the right thing because there were men in the room who were more assertive in the way they were saying things. When I would come back home, I would do soul searching and say, actually, the thing I said, some other men in the room repeated and they listened to them. So that means my idea was good. And then I started becoming more assertive, saying, I believe, not I think, I believe. Even the words you choose have an impact on your audience. Sometimes you'll say, I think this is what we should do. It has a different impact than I believe this is what we should do. It's the change in the tone. What's the worst case scenario? Your idea is not taken? It's okay. But you know what? Every moment is a learning moment. I always say we don't make mistakes. We have every moment is a learning moment. When you make a mistake, it's a learning moment. It's a moment where you say, what did I learn from this? Not feeling bad that you made a mistake, because these are all learning moments. And that's how you climb the steps going up on building self confidence. It's not overnight, it's about believing, where you're starting to think, to believing, and then using those words. People will listen to you more when you believe in something versus you think something, because then they think, oh, in your mind, you're still not sure. It's the confidence you show in your point of view. You think I'm saying all these because I'm always saying I believe that these are 5 foundations because my experience has shown it. If I had started this meeting by saying, oh, I think these are the 5, would you listen to me the way I'm saying I believe these are the 5? Completely different. But you build confidence over time. You don't build confidence overnight. I'll give you an interesting story on a very pivotal time where I built confidence. I was working at Hewlett Packard. My peer, who was more junior than me, who was a man, got promoted, and I didn't. I got promoted 6 months later. And I went home quite upset with my husband, saying, what is this? This is not fair. And my husband said, you know what? Go to a company that respects both men and women and go to Cisco. Go look at Cisco. I was like, too much work. I don't want to do it. So he cut an ad. At that time, it wasn't on the internet. You didn't have LinkedIn. You didn't have all this on the internet. He cut an ad on a piece of paper for a company called Adaptec. He says, Manjula, this job is exactly like what yours is, a project manager in IT. Go interview for the job just to build your confidence. I took a day off. I went to interview for the job. Do you know, after 5 hours, they offered me the job? I was so surprised. I'm like, oh my God, that's how good I am, that in 5 hours I got a job. That's when my husband said, see, you got the confidence. Now go to Cisco. I went to Cisco and they gave me 2 job offers that build my confidence. Confidence is built one step at a time, not overnight. But those are moments where I reflected, saying, wow, I am that good. Let me go to the next level. Reflect on the different experiences you have, both good and bad, to build your confidence. And then you must believe versus just thinking.
Manjula ma'am, thank you. And I feel your story is a lot about having an open mindset, being ready to change and explore anything new. But if you have to do all these things, because a lot of children have been asking what kind of skills and what is the reason for your success. So, if I may put it, probably it is the courage that you have to venture into a new field. So here, this is Tanishka. She asks, I'm unsure about my career choices. Can you please suggest which skill will always be valuable, irrespective of growth in technology?
Open mindset. Read the book. It's a book called, I will send you in email, Pramaniji and Sherbet, in an email, the name of the book and the author. You must have an open mindset. It's not about just the skill. That's a skill, that's a capability to have an open mindset. And think about what is your strength. There's a beautiful thing that we learn in corporate America. You have strengths, you have weaknesses. And for many years, corporate America will coach you on you got to make your weakness your strength. You can't do that. You can't make your weakness into your strength. What you do is you neutralize your weakness so that it doesn't drag you down, but you actually make your strength stronger. That's how you're successful. Your strength becomes stronger, you neutralize your weakness and improve on it, but you can never make it your strength. So I would recommend think about your strengths and weaknesses, improve your weaknesses, but make your strengths even stronger with an open mindset, and new opportunities will come in front of you because you've got that open mindset that it's a whole world open to you. Be willing to take risk. And if your risk fails, it's okay. Fall down, stand up, and move forward again. Nothing is perfect. You don't think I've had step backs a few times? I told you about my first one. How disappointing is it that I worked so hard at Hewlett Packard? Within 6 months of me joining the company, I went to Malaysia to build the first offshore software. And yet a peer got promoted when I was such a young age. How disappointing is that? But I didn't let that hold me back. Those were learning moments. And I'm sure I had some weakness that I improved on as I went and interviewed at Cisco. And my mentors were tough on me, saying, Manjula, you're not doing a good job here. You're moving too fast. My mentors gave me some feedback early in my career. Manjula, your biggest weakness is you're very smart. I said, biggest weakness? I think that's my biggest strength. They said, do you know why it is your biggest weakness? Because you move so fast that the others don't understand what you're saying. You have to slow down so that you bring people along with you. So I thought it was my biggest strength. And my mentor says, no, that's your biggest weakness because you move so fast that you're not taking other people along. And so, how will you get along with other people? Because they'll say, oh, she's a different person. And work is all about teamwork. And how do you bring teamwork? And how do you bring people together? You learn these things through mentors. And that's why it's important. You have the right mentors in school, the right friends of your parents who can mentor you through this journey. I'm
So
so
this
glad people are asking these questions because
so
that's
lots.
hard for me to tell this story without these questions because I'm telling more inflection points with the questions you're asking. I absolutely love the questions. You're such a bright group of people.
Ma'am, there's a parent asking a question in follow up to Manjula ma'am's answer that how can our children strike a balance between following their passion and ensuring financial stability, career growth? The parent further says, parent is Mr. Vimal Kumar, that can passion really turn into a successful profession in today's highly competitive world? And should we allow our children to follow our passion, keeping in mind finance is so important?
The very first comment I made was there is bringing, even the video I think you had posted, is you have to combine passion with monetary benefit and what your parents are saying. You can't follow passion. If you want to sit in a room and just read and that's your passion, I'm sorry, that's not going to be a career. If you want to sit in a room and do something else, play music, that's not a passion. You have to combine it with what are the opportunities in the world. So I 100% agree with you. My passion was business, even though my parents were at that time when I was growing up, it was doctor, lawyer, or engineer. There weren't that many IT careers then. But I wanted to do business because I knew I could make it as a foundation. Till today, I use economics as a foundation to my business decision making. You have to have a practicality to the passion. So I 100% agree with you. But what I mean by passion is if your child wants to get into something related to analytics and AI, but you say no, to become a doctor is the best thing, then you're not going with their passion. You can't go opposite directions. That beta, you have to become a doctor or you have to become an engineer. There are other options. Within the landscape in the world, you got to figure out what is the highest aptitude and the highest passion. People think, oh, you're really good in math, so you should become a computer science. No, not necessarily. You know, my one daughter is is a master's in education with a thesis on social justice. She's in the education business. My other daughter is a famous surgeon. But do you know what was the defining factor when my daughter was going into medicine in her pre-med? In the United States, they say the pre-med, the people that really become doctors are the best in organic chemistry. You would think it's biology. No, it's organic chemistry. So it's important to understand if you have your love for organic chemistry is what makes you into a doctor, not that you did really good dissections of the pig in high school. You see what I'm saying about passion? That's what I'm talking about passion. It's passion in reference to the opportunities that are available today and tomorrow, not just today.
Aditya, I hope this answers your question as well, because he's written that having a passion like singing, dancing, etc., and venturing into these fields is very risky, and there remains a constant chance of failure. Choosing basic professions such as engineer or doctor is less risky, but we do not enjoy them because they are not our passions. That's one. And another one writes,
Why not economics? Why not? You know, my daughter's an educationalist. She's having a very big impact on society. You've got to discount. You know, in the United States too, all the Indians put so much pressure on their children. Oh, you must become a doctor, lawyer, you must go to Berkeley, or you must go to Stanford, or you must go to Harvard. I don't believe that. My husband went to Duke University. I didn't. Today, my career has taken off faster than my husband's. It's not that.
I would like to advocate for the parents here. Mr. Vinayak Singh is asking that, Manjula ma'am, were you never scared or worried about the future, the risks that there might be of changing careers midlife? And is it possible to change multiple careers times during your life without some negative effects?
You're always afraid. You know, it's interesting how you think about what is the definition of afraid. I've had many coaches. I have spoken in front of thousands of people in large halls. You think I'm not nervous when I go in front of 10,000 people and speak in a large hall? In fact, I've had coaches that have taught me how to speak in a large audience and grab the audience in terms of getting their attention. You know what they say? If you're not a little bit nervous and you're not afraid, you're overconfident. And when you get overconfident, you get arrogant. And when you get arrogant, you will never be successful. So the confidence has to be a little bit about feeling nervous. You will actually do your best when you have a touch of nervousness and you're taking risk. Of course, I took risks sometimes where it didn't work out, but I didn't take it as, oh, I fell over here. Even when I was at Salesforce, there was one opportunity where I didn't get the opportunity, somebody else got an opportunity. Again, it was a man versus me who got the opportunity. But I learned from it. I said, why didn't I get that job? Oh, they liked this aspect of the experience more than me. I took the risk of applying for the job. So many of us don't do something because we are so afraid of rejection. I tell my daughter that. She didn't apply to London School of Economics for a summer program. She applied to another program in UK because she was so afraid that she'll have rejection from London School of Economics. And I said, Priya, come on. We've all had rejection. It's okay to be rejected. But use it as a learning moment versus, oh, I got rejected. Don't let it put you down. Of course, I took so much risk. Think about the risk my husband and I took. We were from well known families of India. We came to the United States. Do you know that the two of us started with a box of books? That's what we moved into an apartment and we had a box of books. We had nothing. We were immigrants. Our parents didn't have enough money to be sending it to us. That was a huge risk. I had no backing. Of course, it was risk, but it makes you stronger. Take risk, but take a calculated risk. That's important. Don't take a risk like one of the parents said, I am going to be playing sitar and I will become a Bollywood star. No, that's unreasonable risk. Love to play sitar, go do performances, go do plays, but you must have a major and a minor. That becomes your minor, and then there's a major. I love gardening. My mother was a botanist. Do you know I'm growing a vegetable garden in my yard? Oh my God, it's so much work. The rabbits come, this comes, that comes, but it's a hobby. But I didn't become a horticulturist. I became an IT executive and I love gardening. I have lovely tomatoes in my garden. I have lovely brinjals. I have lovely flowers. And I'm so frustrated with the rabbits because they came and ate my petunias a few days ago. But that's a minor, that's not a major.
Ma'am,
So
there's
get
another.
rid of that nagging fear. Go
Hmm.
with, don't let that bother you. Just move forward and use it as a learning moment. Let it not nag you. You're still young and you're with your parents. If you don't take risk now, when will you go take risk? You have their backing. I didn't have the backing when I moved to USA. I had the backing when I was in India. You have a backing of your, okay, you do something. Okay, you fail. Have a conversation with your parents and say, I'm going to take this calculated risk. Are you with me? If it doesn't work out, this is my option. But I've looked at what is my backup plan. It's called calculated risk rather than risk.
Manjula, ma'am, this is in continuation to what you said. And is it always essential to have a plan B? Is a quite often asked question. And sometimes they say, when we have a fixed aim, why are you even telling me to think about a plan B? You're trying to deviate me from my path. So how do we answer this?
If you don't want to call it plan B, call it whatever you want. I call it risk. So that's why I was saying, write on a piece of paper, what are the pros, what are the cons? What's the worst case scenario? And you need to be comfortable with the worst case scenario, because if you don't reach your goal, what is the worst case scenario? That you don't reach your goal. Are you comfortable with that? You can call it plan B, you can call it whatever you want. You need to be comfortable in your head that I'm going to take this risk. That's what they call as call. You get to your goal. But you know what? If you set your goal here and it takes you 10 steps to get there versus one step, and it's a windy road versus a straight road, you're going to be disappointed. But if you've gone through some thinking in terms of, if I don't reach it through a straight line and I reach it through a windy road, I'm still okay with it. And at what point will I change my mind? And don't think about it as 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Just create 2, 3 year plans. Just one step at a time. You're going on the top of the pyramid and you're taking thousands of steps in your life, because we're all going to live till 90 and 95 years old.
This is probably, this question comes from the conflict which some students have with their parents. Uh, so he says that, uh, but this is in continuation with some other question he had asked earlier about the choice of professions. Now he says, but if you say that there are other options, they will ask us to become a civil servant or a web developer. So it's probably whatever the parent knows, and the child is not aligned with what the parent says because he's more into sports. So hence the question.
You're very good at sports, but how many cricketers are there in all of India that the top, what is it, 40 or 50 reach IPL? Very few. The You can be still good in sports. My younger daughter, uh, who's a doctor, her husband's an American. They're both fantastic at sports. Um, my daughter was one of the top 7 runners of California and could have even gone to the Olympics, but opted not to, but went into her career. But they enjoy sports still today. My son-in-law loves surfing. He's joined a soccer league. You can still enjoy sports and still have a career. Now, I know that there are folks that are learning golf and want to become professional golfers. My husband's cousin's son in Bangalore is reaching that point. Maybe you can try it for a few years. And if you don't feel you have the opportunity, you must have a plan to go to college in order to do that. So, okay, try it. Like I said, when I first came to it, try a few things, but you got to put yourself a time limit for this. It can't be endless. For 15 years, you're trying to become a professional golfer.
Apurv Tiwari says, I dream of working in astrobiology to explore life beyond Earth and bring meaningful change to our society. But I sometimes fear, what if I don't make it to a place like the Ivy League? Though you've already answered a part of it, but how do I know if the risks I'm taking are calculated and not just wishful thinking? And how can I overcome the fear of failure while staying true to my purpose, both scientifically and spiritually?
I love astrobiology idea, and you do not need to go to an Ivy League to go into astrobiology. Let's be very clear about that. You can go to many colleges to have that. My husband's written a few books for children lately, and his first book is called MySpace. And in that, he talks about himself as a small child when man went on moon. His father owned a famous photography studio in New Delhi, and they had access to some of the best movies, and they used to be the ones who did all the work for CNN and BBC and all of that. And he said he used to walk into I forget the name, the American, is something in Connaught Place where he actually was so motivated on touching the rock that had come from the moon that that's when it was an inflection point for him to become a electronics engineer. And he was probably 10 or 11 years old. Who knew that we'd have driverless cars? Who knew Silicon Valley would have got created? So I love that you're thinking big to becoming an astrobiologist, because yes, we will be in your generation going to the Mars. Yes, there will be space stations around the world. And I'm telling you, there are some fantastic universities, even in India. You think about it today. The CEO of Microsoft is an Indian. The CEO of Google is an Indian. There are so many Indians who are at the top ranks. Do you think they all went to Ivy League first? No, they went to regional colleges in India for engineering. You can go to some really good regional colleges where you're doing space. There is so much space work going on in India. Yes, you can come to America, but you can do it in India as well. So I love your goal. How you reach your goal, there are many, many paths, and it's well beyond Ivy League. Ivy League, fantastic. But that's not the only path. Remember, I said to reach this, you can either go straight, or you have a windy path here, or you have this path, you have that path. Think about all the various paths that will make you an astrobiologist.
Devansh Yadav says, ma'am, what should be our ultimate aim to achieve in life?
I am not got the spiritual upbringing that you are getting. You have to look inside on who you are. I'll be honest with you. I'm a spiritual person, but I'm not a religious person. And at this stage of my life, I am getting so enlightened with Aurobindo that I've never had in my whole life. And I went this year, I'll be going next year either. I can't answer that question because there are two dimensions of your life. One is the monetary life, and one is the spiritual life. One of our very close family friends just passed away, and they had a celebration of his life a few days ago, last Sunday, and his son did a beautiful job. We all sat in a circle, and he talked about the four phases of Hinduism and how his father came to USA in 1956 to MIT. That time, hardly anybody used to come. And yet, he was a major follower of Chinmaya Mission, and he created the Chinmaya Mission, and he achieved multiple dimensions in his life, and it was such a beautiful life on how he impacted human beings. It was such a beautiful event. What is the ultimate goal of life? I don't think I can answer. You know how they say um, art is in the eye of the beholder? I think your life is in the art of what you want to become and what you want to achieve. Uh, I'm not a master at that.
How important is for a parent to understand child's passion, ma'am?
Very important. This is a partnership. Remember, I talked to you about my parents and I talked to you about my spouse? Those partnerships are super important. This is soul searching that the student needs to do with his parents, her parents. Because the help they will give in college education, in the investment in the children, the opportunity with mentors, the opportunity with sponsors, agreeing to over life who your spouse is going to be is a partnership between children and parents. I had a very deep partnership with my parents. My mother passed away 2 years ago. My father passed away 4 years before that. They migrated to the United States 25 years ago after my father had been so successful because they knew that we wanted our children, my brothers and I, to grow up with the influence of my parents. They didn't want to leave India, but they came here. They set up their own house here. This is a journey where deep partnerships must exist. between parents and children and their children.
Ma'am,
So
in
Very
this
should
deep
case,
partnership of what you accomplish in life is a journey with your parents. If you're going to have a conflict, you're going to struggle with soul searching.
ma'am, nowadays as social media is growing, will this delay the partnership, ma'am?
Why?
Because everyone gets so busy with the social media, Instagram and all. Will it delay the partnership between a parent and a child, ma'am?
We got to create time. It's called quality time versus quantity time. We spend so much time with our children, quantity, how, what they eat, what you cook for them, all of that. I think you should have a date with your children once a week. Go out for coffee, one on one. My husband's better at it than I am. He, till today, once every couple of weeks, will tell each of our daughters, let's meet for coffee. You gotta, and please leave your phones behind. I think it's quality time. You spend 1 hour one on one with your child and build a transparent relationship. Super important. Super important. I remember when our children were young, we used to leave my husband and I were so busy. We used to leave our children once a month on a Saturday with a babysitter and just spend time with the two of us talking about life. It's called quality time versus quantity time. And it's super important to have quality time with your parents, and parents have quality time. Is always, you do it once a month, you do it once a week, whatever your frequency is. But please don't do it while you're sitting with like this. This is not how you're going to have a meeting with your parent.
yeah.
Question by Aditya is that, ma'am, it sometimes occurs that we are met with spontaneous failure which overwhelms us. This failure tends to get the better of our minds at times due to the fragility of the scenario. And he writes further, it has honestly happened with me earlier that I was undeniably close to success, and they were all precisely calculated measurements. But however accurate the attempt is, there always remains a chance that failure can reach with us. And in that fragility of the case, where it is absolutely unexpected a major fall, we get overjoyed because we are so incredibly near the door of success. But in that moment, when nothing could have possibly gone wrong, it arrives. And this failure renders us in great disappointment. What should, when faced with us? So, this is how the child has articulated his sentiments.
This is not the first time it'll happen in your life. Life is full of disappointments, and life is also full of joys. They always say, right? Life is a bed of roses. You can smell the beautiful rose, but there are thorns around it too. I don't know whether at your age you should take I wouldn't call it failure. I would call it a learning moment, because many of these are going to come. And I think you should step back and say, in the moment, you're emotional, you're really sad. But as the months pass, go back to it and say, what was my learning from that? Remember, I made the point earlier that I was shocked when one of my mentors said, oh, you're super smart and it's your biggest weakness. Can you imagine how shocked I was? I was like, I'm so smart. These are learning moments. And if you use it as a learning moment and use the disappointment as saying, what is the one thing lesson I learned out of it? Next time when a disappointment occurs, you'll have a second lesson to learn. And actually, you're going to become sharper over time with your successes. So I'm sorry to hear that you went through that, but actually, you're lucky you went through it at a younger age, because some people get so arrogant that they don't even see the disappointments and they trip on themselves. And that is the fine line that we are taught in corporate America between arrogance and assertiveness. Self confidence and arrogance have to be very finely managed. And the best way to manage it is to really internalize your disappointments as learning moments.
Ma'am, thank you for the opportunity. On behalf of St. M.R. Jaipuria School, Anjali ma'am and Promini ma'am, Deepa Vahi ma'am, the entire staff and children. We wholeheartedly, ma'am, thank you for sharing your valuable experiences, your ideas, your wisdom, and enlightening the student community, the parent community. For taking out your valuable time. We know how busy you are, but yet you took out this very graciously, lovingly, the time to address the parents and the children and help benefit the education system at large. So, ma'am, thank you so much, so much. We're deeply, deeply full of gratitude. And this learning, I believe, will go a long way. Surely, we will share the recordings and the children will listen to it a couple of times to absorb the depth of what you intend to deliver to the parent and the children community.
I do want to say, having come to your school, you already have a very high platform because you have a very good balance in your school of education and spirituality. So you should all be very confident because you already have an edge. And it has been my utmost pleasure to answer so many questions and to talk to you because I'm so impressed with the questions that were asked. Good luck to all of you in your career, your life, and your journey. It's beautiful. Bye for now.